now be recorded.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Finance and Personnel Committee for Tuesday, July 21st to order, please. Roll call.
Mark Williams.
Here.
Chris Serval.
Here.
Mike Malczewski.
Here.
Tom Selk.
Here.
And Allison Burnett.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there any corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion passes. Action on the minutes of the Finance and Personnel Committee for a regular meeting June 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion passes. 6, comments from the public. There's nobody here this evening right now, so we'll do, if somebody does, we will take it up at that time. 7, consent items, investment report. Do we, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, your choice. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8, action items. General Fund 2020 financials and forecast. Mr. Winholtz.
So I want to take a little bit of time to go through, where we're at. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's impacting us directly in our financials. There's a few parts in here that get intermingled. This is specifically the general fund, but I want to go through different revenues and expenses and what's going on. Almost every line in the budget is impacted. So in short, revenue loss is really what we're experiencing with the COVID crisis more than any kind of increased expenditures. So you hear a lot of CARES Act and other funding mechanisms to help municipalities or businesses. From a government perspective in the state of Wisconsin, from a local municipality's perspective, the CARES Act are funds to address expenses specifically related to COVID. The village has only experienced about $10,000 of such costs. Now that's through elections and then supplies. We have not, thankfully, had any major outbreaks within the village where that's required public safety or other personnel to address or work those issues, nor have we had anything internally from staff where we've lost employees due to the sickness. That doesn't mean that still couldn't happen, just at this point we've been very fortunate. So our costs really have been cleaning supplies. If you've noticed in the village hall offices, we have some kind of impromptu face shield guards and things like that. Those are all items that those costs incurred, we can apply for CARES Act funding. The state of Wisconsin has $275,000, give or take, it rounds to 275, available for Ashwaubenon specifically to use, but it's only for costs. So when I go through a lot of this, it's unfortunate that we can't access that for lost revenue because that is the theme across the state. Specifically, our biggest lost revenue right now is room tax, and that is consistent across the state as well. Room tax is a big issue for a lot of communities. The other area more recently that has come about is our shared services agreement with the United Nations. At this point, it doesn't look as though there is going to be any funding there. They are struggling as well, and that is $350,000. Now that's not general fund, but ultimately it impacts general fund because a lot of those projects are items that had already been paid for early in the year and that funding hadn't come through. So that's going to require general fund dollars to go through. A lot of the other areas of concern or of changes would be, park and rec, obviously. A lot of programs not happening, that's a lot of revenue lost. However, there's also a lot of expense not incurred. So those, in some ways, wash a lot of them out. It hurts us more than it helps us because there's still, if we offer a program, let's say a swim class, for example, we still have to have a lifeguard on staff, but we may only have 3 kids signed up instead of 7. So we're still going to incur almost the same cost, but have less revenue in a lot of the programs that we are offering. The lake was not opened, so that saved. There were some expenses already incurred as preparing to open the lake. We don't just wait till it opens. So for the most part, Park and Rec, not terrible. Licensing permitting has been fairly good through everything. There's been a lot of construction, and a lot of that was done early in the year, so not too much there. Public safety has a lot of savings in overtime. A lot of that overtime, however, is reimbursed overtime. So although we see a lot less expense, we see less revenue. That's PMI events, Cellcom Marathon, all those other events where people pay for police or fire staffing. We don't have that revenue. So when it all shakes out, and I literally went line by line through all of this, through everyone's department, there's a lot of savings. There's no one going to any training events. There's no conferences. It's not a huge dollar amount, but I literally go through every line item in the budget. At the end of the day, right now, we're still looking at $267,000 of loss, if you will, deficit to the fund balance. That is not taking away any of our services as we budgeted. So that's not cutting anything from street repairs, for example, mill pave program. It's not taking away parking lots or other projects we had out there. So I have a plan in place to address that. We've done this in the past where we've forgiven health premiums at the end of the year. Fortunately, again, things could change, but at this point, our health plan is actually doing very, very well. We just have not incurred costs. Now that could be people putting things off, and maybe long term, over the course of the next couple of years, that could come back to bite us. Hopefully not. Hopefully nobody has anything serious that they've not addressed. But that's an area where I think we can make up most of that ground. And then the other areas in our equipment use charge, our vehicle replacement plan, if you will, and I've talked to my auditors about this. That plan is really, we charge back departments based on depreciation schedules. So as some of the equipment we maybe estimated at 270 comes in at 250, there's a savings there. So some money could be allocated from that fund. My goal is to balance the budget this year so that 2020 balances out. And I'm starting to think long term. And the reason why I'd like to do that is because, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but as we go into the 2021 budget, it's going to be extremely difficult. So we're already at a starting point with Oneida money, gone. Room tax, I don't know if we're going to reduce some of that or not next year. Who knows if that'll come into play. Certainly the Packers, I also adjusted basically no fans in the stands for this year. That's assuming that. So if for whatever reason they do 50% capacity and it sells, well then we might have a little more revenue come in this year. But for next year, as we're previewing out, I want to balance this year's budget because I think some of the steps we may have to address in the budget, and that's another agenda item, and you'll understand the reasoning for that. So all in all, it shakes out, I think at this point, again, barring anything significant health-wise with staff and things like that, but we'd still have roughly $250,000 of untouched funds from the state. So if we incur a lot more cost, we have a refunding mechanism for that. But I think we can balance the budget this year, but it's gonna have impacts into the future, and there's really no way around that. I don't want to touch fund balance if we can avoid it, because that might be something we have to do with the budget next year. And so from a rating agency, from all these things down the road, we want to have a good plan in place. And so, and then I'll talk more about that later. But overall, that's what we've got going on. If you have any questions on specific items, but literally pretty much every line item here is adjusted or impacted by everything going on.
So $267,000, if we had to reduce our budget next year or increase taxes, is that our other option?
Yeah, the options, and I put it in the next agenda item, and I know they kind of merge together, but the options really are going to be things we've never had to do before. Either significant tax increase or dipping into fund balance or reducing services. Those are things that you have to kind of get your head around right now. And I have another meeting Friday with League of Wisconsin Municipalities, sponsors with all the different finance representatives across the state. And that's already been talked about. People are trying to avoid those difficult decisions, but at this point, I don't know how we get around it. The state has announced that they're definitely going to reduce transportation aid in the future. 5%, 10%, we don't know exact number, and we don't know the exact date, whether that's the 2021 budget or, because they're a July 1 to June 30. So however that kicks in, it could be next year, or it'll definitely be the year after, or both. So going forward, I'd rather use some of the tools we can this year, like forgiving health premiums, which is, I think would be pretty easy to do. That's about $217,000 for November and December. And right now that fund is trending about 300 plus. That's how well we're doing already. We're at about 60% of our budget on the health plan right now, which is great. And that's really hard to lose. You know, you could dip into that a little bit in the second half of the year, but really that much would be something catastrophic. And at that point, we have stop loss and other things that come into play that would help offset some of those higher cost items. So yeah, those are difficult topics that are going to have to be addressed, at least option A, B, C, D, and things like that. So if we can get through this year, that helps, I think, for a plan going into the future.
How does if there's no fans in the stands, I know that's going to hurt our revenue but what about public safety? Is there a savings on that part too?
Right.
Or did the Packers reimburse us for anything?
And that's factored in here as well. So anything that, if I'm reducing a revenue that has a cost attached to it, that's impacted. Mary, you don't mind, she had a conversation with the Packers about this year. Usually we bill them $50,000. Our costs are almost double that. This year we kind of agreed just to bill as we use. So, you know, dollar for dollar, not knowing if we're even going to have anything out there or a very, very small presence. This forecast here has no aid from the Packers and really no Packer overtime in it. So if there's something in the future, it would wash at this point.
My other question is, why isn't there an agreement with the Oneidas that they have to pay us even though their revenues, quote, are down? Because we are providing them, you know, fire and safety and other services, but, you know, there's other businesses that have to pay. Why can they not pay?
So when we had our conversation with them, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we're working through that to see what revenues we can get. That agreement expired actually in December, and we were going to be getting together to discuss it, and then we had the COVID thing hit, and they've been almost shut down. They're starting back a little bit now, but so Greg is being very conservative, and he is budgeting $0, but we don't know what that could be. So that's why he's budgeting 0.
So there's no agreement in place right now. So
How is that agreement organized with the Oneida? Is it a service agreement or is it a pilot?
It is a service agreement, but it expired on December 31st. So like I said, we were going to be starting to negotiate it all again, and then the COVID thing hit and the whole world came to an end. So
Not quite, but
yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, like Mary said, I'm not trying to paint a doom and gloom. I'm trying to be as conservative, because right at this point, we don't have those funds, and I'm not confident that we will. If we get them, great. That changes things and would help us greatly. So it would pretty much fill this up and then help us address some other areas that we wouldn't have to do some things. But I know there's some conversations with them about possibly working with them where they can access federal funds for certain project things. Maybe that's a different approach that we would go with them and maybe it's a trail or maybe it's certain roadways or things like that where that they can get federal funding and grant dollars and use it for that purpose, then we would partner with them to go that route versus just a check in the mail. So we're trying to explore different options and different opportunities, but everybody's kind of dealing with the same thing. And again, it's a loss of revenue that's hurting everybody, and that's the challenge.
The one thing, is that we had the EMS agreement with them also, and for 2 or 3 months, we had 0 EMS calls out to the casino, so, because they were closed. So our expenditures are down on the expenditure end, but the revenues are also down, but that's what Greg has taken into account in his forecast. So he's being very conservative with it because we don't know. We had the room tax meeting last week, and the projections are a little scary because if there is no fans for the entire Packer season, we won't have a lot of room tax. So that's why we're being very conservative on the cost.
Okay. I think we're jumping ahead probably a little bit, right, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's bring it up a little bit. Or do you want
We
to
can just
keep
go to the
going
next-
on that right
Go to the
away?
next item.
Pardon?
We can just do the next two are budget related anyway, so.
Okay, we'll go on to B. Did you have another question, Allison?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
It's something that I popped in my head. With the agreement with the Oneidas, is that a common practice to let something like that lapse and just negotiate it at a later date? Because it seems to me, we got caught with our pants down a little bit on this.
No, it's already been expired at different times, and then we just renegotiate it and renew it. And it had been renewed for 1 year, and then we were working on getting a 5-year plan in place. And then, like I said, the whole COVID hit and changed everything.
Right, but my question was, is that not unusual? Is that common that, you kind of let it lapse and, hey, we'll get at it at some point?
Well, it wasn't just a, hey, we'll get at it at some point. It was, getting everybody together for the meetings. We have, like 5-6 people from this end would be meeting with, a lot of their people over there. So, like I said, it was going to be starting with the negotiations and setting up meetings. We're trying to set up a meeting now for the second week in August with all of our department heads and different things with the Oneida Nation, and trying to get all of those people together in one room poses a challenge at times. So,
Right, but shouldn't that be, not saying you guys did anything, nobody did anything wrong, but shouldn't we be ahead of that instead of behind it, so we don't get caught in a position where they can just go, well, we don't have the money, we don't owe you anything. Not that you want to be a good neighbor, I understand that.
Right.
And not, you can't get blood out of a turnip. But instead of getting behind it, don't we want to be in front of it and start negotiating, or get something down the road, in the future, get something in place a month or 2 or 6 months before the contract expires?
correct. But like I said, we had renewed it for a year. The one that was signed in 2015, I believe, we had renewed it for a year, and we're going to be working on it, and it just kind of didn't happen. But right now, I mean, the Oneidas are just like any other business, and if they don't have revenue coming in, and their casinos were completely shut down.
Yeah.
So.
I agree, Chris. I mean, we should have been scheduling these meetings probably in July of last year, not this
Right.
year.
I mean, just for a future,
Right.
Right.
so, we don't want to get caught like that again. Like I said, you want to be a good neighbor, and you can't just, even if there was a contract, you can't necessarily, if they don't have the funds, they can't pay it, but you can negotiate that part of it then, down the road where we're not losing out so much money. But, okay.
Okay.
Just to kind of like play devil's advocate for a second or defend staff for a second, I mean, I do think that this is actually a testament to the positive relationship that the village has with the tribe, that there is just such a goodwill understanding that it wasn't this stress of, oh my goodness, our contract's going to lapse, our agreement will lapse. Clearly, there's been this ongoing understanding and joint commitment. No one anticipated this, and I'm sure this will inform staff processes in the future.
Yeah. Also, Ashwaubenon is one of the few municipalities that does have an agreement with the Oneida Nation. And what they've been trying to do is they've been trying to shift from a service agreement to an intergovernmental agreement that is more project-based. And that's why getting everybody together, and that's what they're working at with Green Bay also at the same time, to get it more of a project-based agreement instead of just a service agreement. So to get all those moving pieces together, and like Allison said, you know, we've had a great relationship with the Oneida Nation, and so we trying to work it all through and make sure that all the meetings are met. So.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Move on to B, 2021 budget timeline.
So I just have, this is very similar to years past. I'd just like to make everybody aware of the dates that are coming in the next couple months. So for me, it started already about a month ago, getting everything, starting to get things ready. But the budget kickoff meeting with department heads is August 20th, and then from there, there's different dates. They have to have them due on the 21st, and then ultimately we start internal meetings. We've agreed this year to do more group meetings, larger group versus used to be department head A comes in, meets with village manager, village president, myself. We go over it, they leave, next person, meet 2 or 3 times like that. I think it'd be better in light of everything going on to have all the department heads in together so that we're hearing each other, hearing each other's needs, and really helping set some priorities for the village. So, but it's still meetings. Those take a couple weeks, and then ultimately we have a joint village board finance personnel committee meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 10th. And so all of you in the room plus the village board members would get a budget book on Friday, October 30th to review the proposed budget, and then we go from there. Ultimately, it has to be adopted by the end of November, so that puts us at Tuesday, November 24th for final adoption. So very similar schedule in the past. I just want to give you those dates. And I'm going to try to provide more updates along the way, like tonight, to where we're at, what are some of the issues, so that you're not first hearing about something on Friday, October 30th. So you have some information, and you at any point you can call or stop in at any point at any time going forward.
Okay. Need a motion to approve the budget timeline as presented.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll go on to continued discussion on the 2021 budget preview.
So, yeah, a lot here. It all kind of merges together. So what I wanted to again address is you saw the forecast, and so balancing that to me is critical, because I think I don't know in 2021 how this is all going to shake out. There's a lot of projects. There's a lot of we've been doing capital, 5-year capital plans over the last few years, especially, and a lot of things are get set up. This year you do one thing, next year you do another thing, and then boom, here comes something. Or Department A, puts off a project, so another department could do something one year. But this year, I think there's just, with Oneida money, if that's not in the budget, and then we're looking at the market, that whole assessment ratio, that market adjustment is looking to drop another 5 basis points. That's $400,000 to the budget, all things being equal. It would basically reduce our levy by $400,000. So between the two of those, we're already, $750,000 in the hole. Take away probably $50,000 of interest income, then add in $60,000 to do the market reevaluation that we're going to have to do to fix the assessment ratio problem, there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. So there's a lot of big things out there, and those ideas of how do we balance a budget? Do we dip into reserves? I've talked to Baird about it. I've talked to auditors about it. So there's some comfort level to some extent there, but a rating agency is going to want to see your plan to get out of that. So okay, if you're going to dip in this year, how are you going to reimburse it in future years? So we've talked about, we closed TIF 4, so there's some cash that comes in when you close a TIF. Maybe that's the funds used to pay back the fund balance that you used to balance the budget. All those types of things. Can we do something in other areas? Maybe it's a year of no equipment purchases, because that can have a good impact to the budget. Maybe it's a year of no capital projects at all. Do we even dare not do the roads? We've been down that road before, and that takes forever to climb out of that mess. So, are we going to cut services? Are we going to charge for services that we've never charged for? Those are all things that are going to have to come up as potential options. Now, whether we do any of them or not, we just have never had to face those decisions before. Is it going to be furloughs? Is it going to be layoffs? Is it, all the things that there's business owners, you understand. There's difficult decisions, and the village has been very good, very fortunate. We've always found ways to balance the budget and make it work, but this year I think is going to be a true challenge. So again, doom and gloom, I get it, but that's the reality we're facing right now. Hopefully the state, talk to the legislators. You're on the board or committees, talk to the legislators and say, hey, get us access to all those funds. Those CARES Act dollars. It's the revenues that are killing us. If they start hearing more and more of that, maybe they will start talking. Right now, I think the state doesn't want to commit. Two things. Number one, it's kind of federal money, so they have to follow certain rules on it as it is. Number two, there's still another 6 months, 5 months to go, and if there's something that happens and we need it for expenses, they don't want to overcommit themselves. So, maybe they can reposition the funds and not cut our shared aids. Maybe they can reposition at the state level. Don't give it back to the feds, please. Don't try to keep it. So all of those things, maybe we haven't had to do. Maybe it's people need to make phone calls and let legislators know locally what we're dealing with. So I just want to put it out there, and I'll probably come each month and explain where we're at, update the forecast, walk through. Okay, here's some good news. Here's some more bad news. I don't know. Nobody knows. So hopefully we don't have a surge. Hopefully the Packers can put 25% of people, 50% of people in the stadium. Who knows? So hopefully there's not a mandate. Hopefully the businesses around here can still do something with crowds of some extent during Packer games and create some revenues. So just all those really fun ideas that are going to be out there during the budget season that we're going to have to internally talk about. If you want us to come and change that timeline to address some of those ahead of time, if we're leaning towards something, we'll come to you and say, we talked about this maybe in September, and we come and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? We just, those are all ideas I think that I just want your ears to hear as we go into the budget season.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? No. Alrighty. This is just for discussion, so we'll move on to request to adopt Charter Ordinance 07-2-20 regarding appointment of clerk treasurer positions. Tony?
Prepared in your packet is a draft charter ordinance that's consistent with the referendum question that was on the ballot this spring for the April election, which was to modify the clerk treasurer position so that it is not an elected position. So what this does is modifies our ordinances to affect that change. As I think is indicated in the packet, it is anticipated that that office will be vacated in January of '21, presumably when our current clerk will take over in Brown County, as at least is anticipated. So again, this is just a draft ordinance to put our charter ordinance and Chapter 2 provisions in line with the referendum question that was passed earlier this spring.
Okay. Any questions on this?
I move we, I don't know, how you want to word it? We adopt this,
Charter ordinance,
change to the section 101 and 2120. Is that how you want to word it?
you can just say adopt the charter ordinance 07-2-20, that'll cover everything.
So is that,
Yeah, it'll go to-
Yeah. We got a motion, we need, have a second?
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. E, discussion possible action on village manager position and vacancy. At the last village board meeting, as many of you know, Allison Swanson has resigned, and the village board has asked Finance and Personnel Committee to take a first whack at this as far as giving a recommendation on how we want to refill this position. So I asked staff to submit along with the, in your packets, all the administrative positions that we have here, and all, so to see if there's anything different changes we want to make. It sounds like the staff has met, all the directors have met, and they've had some recommendations that we do have, we hire a human resources person to handle all the human resources duties. And, but they also suggest that we maintain a village manager as well, to have the continuity and the leadership to keep everybody going in the right direction, basically. So in your packet, we've asked the village administrator, the things you can see in there are your village administrator. That was basically a Steve Kabaki role, I believe. Then we changed it to village manager. That's what Allison did. And then the other department heads that are listed in there as well. I also asked for Village of Howard job description for their administrator. And I don't know, was there anything else that we needed at that time? Or, I mean, has everybody read through them and see what we have so far?
Yep.
I have one question, just a little bit of historical context I hope you can provide. I know that the current administrator for the town of Lawrence used to work in a personnel and benefits role with the village of Ashwaubenon. Does that position still exist, or was that position eliminated with the creation of a formal village manager?
I believe that position has gone away, and we've gone just to the village manager handling most of those responsibilities.
Yeah,
Correct.
he was the payroll clerk, and he also did some of the HR, correct?
So it's probably more of the benefits administration, less
More-
of the like leadership type administration role.
He was in the finance area when he worked for Ashwaubenon, and not in any human resources.
No, he was a payroll clerk and an AP clerk. He worked under me. So he didn't, anything HR would have just been, specific to payroll,
Right, right, but
adding, premium amounts or things like that. He wasn't part of the discussions to determine those premiums. It was just specifically how it went into the payroll system.
yeah, Terry said he did more of the an operational type thing. He didn't do any HR decision-making, but was more of a loading of information type thing.
So
Thank you for explaining that.
So one of the things that I've, listening to the department head's recommendation as far as trying to maintain a village manager and a separate HR person, when I was going through them, if you take the village manager job description, and you take the HR stuff out of there, now I'm just trying to start the conversation here. I'm by no means recommending anything yet. And you take, and see if, what other responsibilities that are in there, or if that's what you want the village manager to do, can another position take and combine some positions? As Greg just said, with the finances of next year's budget and everything, we've got to be cognizant of that too, and hiring another staff member on top of it is going to be a tough task for us. So I'm just throwing ideas out here right now. If you try to hire an HR director and a village manager, can we do it, number one? And is there anything we can combine, number two? Or do you need more information? Or, this is just so basically what we want to do is try to expedite this a little bit too. If we have to have a special meeting to dissect this after you hear the explanation, to sit down and just have a working meeting on this alone. Because the village board really wants to get this back so we can start the process of getting these positions filled naturally.
I would imagine that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine that the current sort of lead hiring role that the village manager plays is more for department head level positions, correct? I'd imagine that individual department heads have hiring authority for members in their own departments.
Correct.
Okay. I would imagine, and say if it had to come down to a choice, which it sounds like budgetarily that it will, that there are very competent contract services for human resources. I know there's an agency out of Illinois called GovHR that does executive level recruitment. I'm curious if that might not be able to fill a short-term void, but I guess it really comes down to the question of what is the human resource capacity that staff is seeking? Are they seeking someone to engage in hiring, or are they seeking more a neutral third party that staff can come to if there are contract issues or whistleblower issues?
So when I met with the department heads, they sent a clear message to me that they do want to have an HR person. However, they are not willing to sacrifice the village manager position to get HR. So the HR position is, the village manager position is the number one position that they would like to see filled. It's they said it's kind of like their air traffic controller. You can go to them for contract issues. You can go to them for, if Public Works is doing this project and Park and Rec is doing this project, and coordinating everything and being the total oversight. We've looked at possibly sharing an HR position with either another municipality or maybe the school district. Their HR person is pretty tapped out. If we had a question such as a FMLA question or a COVID question, their HR person could help, but not on, they couldn't give us a full day a week. So I reached out to Kurt, but I have not heard back from him as to whether or not, if we could share with the school district, maybe we could each have another person, well, we would have one person and they could have maybe someone part-time too. So, and then we've also looked at contract services also. There's a couple different ones. The rate varies tremendously for what you pay. So
basically what we need to do is, if we need to come up with a composite or a complete HR job description, if you will, and find out if that's what we want that HR person to do that we would hire. What would that look like, and how much would it cost if we contracted it? or if we hired it.
And I do think that a shared position is feasible. You know, I typically try not to bring my work here, but it's so relevant here since I work for a municipality. We are a municipality slightly smaller than Ashwaubenon in Kaukauna, and we have a shared human resource agent that's full-time, but she's shared with our utility. So we only have about 20 hours a week for the city. It's really tough during seasonal hiring booms when we're hiring seasonal workers for summer, but we make it work. And in talking with staff that has worked there prior to adding a human resource director, which is only in the last 10 years, the finance director used to do all of the hiring. And they said as employees that they did not feel as comfortable going to a department head about concerns as they do with the human resource director. They feel there's a level of, I guess, just kind of neutrality that comes with that role that they didn't feel existed with another department head having to go to them with those concerns. And that's not a knock on that department head. It's just typically if you have to involve HR, you're already in a pretty uncomfortable place, and there's maybe a sense of security in working with someone that's trained in human resource management.
Yeah,
So I definitely, that was a long segue, but I definitely like to explore an option of sharing the services or contracting, because I do think it can be done part-time. It's not maybe the best, but it's definitely manageable. As far as the village manager piece, I mean, I work for an organization that doesn't have a manager, and I will say that there's a lot of dysfunction that comes from not having a manager. I think that it can really lead to difficult power structures between department heads, and it can lead to kind of agendas, and having somebody above that can really help create order and unify departments. And, you know, unless you have these issues, some of which relate to human resource addressing that a manager must manage, I think that it really sets the village apart to continue to be run very professionally.
I've been really thinking about this. We've been getting all kinds of information. You know, you got the report that we did, the study we did back in 2009, which, by the way, all of those notes that were on the sidelines of all of those pages, those were from 2009 when I marked that thing up all the way. Just me personally, in talking with the department heads and talking with some staff, I think that we should get a manager on board and then have a manager help us navigate through getting the HR. Do we do the HR with the shared services? Do we do it contracted services? Do we try to pull funds from somewhere to get a part-time? I don't know what that is, but I definitely think that the manager position is definitely, should be a focus.
Does anybody have an idea how much time Allison spent on personnel, on HR? Any ballpark? No, 10% of her time, 20%? Probably she's the only one who knows, but.
But if you look at the village administrator and the village manager job descriptions, I mean, they handle everything from salary and benefit plans, both of them. I mean, there's quite a bit of stuff that the village administrator or manager, if you will, does. Contract negotiations, which used to be a lot more than it is now, but at least there's still contract negotiations that go on. All the, handling all valuations, benefits, all that kind of stuff, I believe, is all handled through that department, through her.
Right. Right.
So, I mean,
Allison, how many employees does Kaukauna have?
About 70, and then there's that's FTE. And then I would say there's about that at the utility as well. So about 140, 150 between the two.
Okay.
do you know, Do you know what that position gets paid?
I don't, but I can send that along to staff.
Can you get a job description from them on what they handle and what they, just as a starting point for us?
Sure.
Um,
I know I've seen, just because I'm in this world, I've seen a number of these administrator positions come up recently, and I think I'm not like talking smack about village administrators or village managers, but it's definitely a position that the majority of people who hold them, they hop around, and they look to kind of have some big picture wins in a community, and then they use that to leverage a new position. I think Ashwaubenon is very well positioned with some of the projects happening in the community right now to attract really top-notch candidates. So I think that weighs in Ashwaubenon's favor versus some of the communities I've seen that are advertising for these positions that maybe don't have that economic momentum. I think Ashwaubenon does. And that means that even in the midst of a pandemic, this might be a really exceptional time to be seeking one. And we can also measure, particularly how somebody who's leaving a current manager role, how they manage the crisis in their organization and what they learned from this.
I agree with that insight, Allison, completely. I think Ashwaubenon is staged to be recognized as having a major opening, and there's going to be some good candidates. But I do think we need to fill the village manager position, and then probably deal with an HR position after that. I think we're behind the 8 ball financially on being able to do that right now.
And Tom, to get back to your question, percentage of time, it's very difficult because it ebbs and flows, and you're going to have, there's so many parts of that position that have high points and low points that they start to merge. But not only that, even some of the HR duties that get removed, there would still be the village manager input in those discussions. So all of the benefit enrollment that goes on in the fall, I'm in those meetings too. So that would probably be a village manager with the person. So even though they're going to not be leading that effort, they're still going to be a part of that effort. And it's just such an interwoven position that it will, and then HR will just be another component of that weave, because that HR person, what's nice about HR persons, they're independent though, and they're separated, and they can stay separated when they need to be. So, but you're right, the budget's going to be an issue, but these are the part of those decisions that we just need to make it work. If that's the decision made, that's the priority then. Whatever the priority becomes, and then, okay, what if to that? And those are the decisions we need to make. So if we keep a structure and say, yes, we're going to have a person in HR by January 1 or by July 1 or something like that, then in the budget, it's going to be in there, and then that means something else gets bumped. So yeah, the budget, but it's never easy to put a position in the budget. That's always the hardest thing to do, always, every year. So yes, part of me is like, just throw it in, what the heck? We have so many other things to deal with, but it's always a very difficult thing to do, putting positions into budget every year. So that's never going to go away.
She made a good point, Allison made a good point as far as, part of it being part of the utility. Now, an HR person, can some of that, if we decide to go that route, be allocated towards that?
Yeah, we would probably do that. We do that with a variety of positions at the village today. We have to be careful how much. It can't be like 50%, but it could be 10% potentially, depending on how much time and effort we think they're going to put against that position. Now, I personally, my position gets a little bit higher percentage because the utility creates a lot of invoices and creates a lot of reports that I do, versus your time and effort to the utility is much less. You have decisions to make, but not as a higher percentage. So that's what we do with every position. We every year analyze. Park and rec, nothing goes to utility. But, village engineer, yes. Street superintendent, does he get some or not? So we evaluate that. But there would be some.
Okay, so I got a couple questions for you, committee here, I guess. Do you want to get some more information, like what Allison can get us, and see if we can get any information from the league, maybe from other municipalities that have HR people, and get some job descriptions from them with their village manager possibly, and then sit down and just go through this stuff and just work on this as a one agenda workshop, if you will.
I agree with that, Mark.
I mean, that's,
I do too.
we have to sit down and move papers around, and, I mean, one of the things that I want to make sure that we take into consideration with the charter ordinance that we approved tonight is look at that clerk treasurer position. If we're splitting some of it off and as the treasurer position, is there some opportunity there for dual roles, combination?
Yeah, where is that, who is the clerk going to report to now? The president or where is it on the org chart? Because the org chart's going to be changing now, if you add,
Well,
Right, right. I don't know, like, all of the department heads report to the village manager, except Tony. Tony reports to the village board. So, there was always questions about the legalities of changing minutes or discrepancies with the clerk, and that's why there were people that always advocated to keep it elected, because they answered to the people. So I thought, I don't know this, but maybe we could explore having the clerk report to the board.
well, in the
And I don't
current
know-
job description for the clerk, they report to the village president and the village board.
Right, but that's because they're elected,
Correct.
right? So,
Sorry, I feel like I'm like nonstop talking about my work today, but we just, by referendum, separated our clerk treasurer position and turned it into an appointed role as well last November. And the organizational structure we took is that our finance director has taken on the role of treasurer, and he is now the supervisor of the clerk. And it all went into effect July 1, so I can't tell you how it's going yet, but we're about 6 months ahead on that one, and it's been quite an eye-opening and positive learning experience on what those jobs really entail and what division of roles looks like.
Okay.
great info.
So with that being said, I mean, what other information would you want when we sit down and try? Is everybody okay with having a special meeting, first of all?
Sure.
Kind of move this
Yes.
ahead?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so what other, I mean, with what you got here, what was provided so far, and is there anything else that we would want when we sit down and do this? I mean, so we can have it in front of us and everybody can see it. Allison, you said you're gonna get your HR
Yeah.
position and salary. I mean, we can look at salary stuff too. Allison
I
Williams,
don't know if this is a possible ask, but I'd love to see some direct feedback from department heads. I know it sounds like you had some pretty detailed conversations, Mary, but I would love to either see summary of those comments or specific comments, or if there's time to generate a brief survey for department heads. I guess I just have some more pointed questions I'd like to ask about, what are the key roles or priorities you see a village manager having, or what are the areas where you see gaps or weaknesses in the organization that you hope a human resource director would fill? Because not only do we need to know those desired traits and characteristics when we hire, I think it also will inform a position description. And if we really clearly see through that exploratory process that there's just some areas that can't wait for human resource management, I mean, that may indicate a clear path during budget cycle. And it may inform the way the village manager role is written. Because my experience in being in this landscape is that you can get someone who's kind of a do-it-all village administrator that wears the human resource hat and does a lot of staff and organizational babysitting, or you can get someone that is a real partner in economic development with your community development and planning department that is gung-ho out there selling your community for economic development and basically working to generate revenue and lower property tax burden. I don't think you can have both. There's not enough hours in the week, and I don't think you're ready to pay enough to get both. So it'll definitely inform the direction of the type of manager you want to hire. And there's not a right or a wrong type, but staff will be able to offer insight into what they're looking for in their next supervisor.
Good points, Allison, and thanks for the feedback. Would that, if we had a meeting just with that one agenda item, would it be possible to have the department heads involved in it?
I'm sure that, yeah, they would.
I mean, we could have the first half an hour, 45 minutes, just department heads if you want, and then take the next. I'd rather have a longer meeting and be done, done with this, start hammering things out, that rather than having multiple meetings and multiple nights and everything in the summer night like this.
But I personally, just me, but I'm more of I'd rather see somebody in person than a survey. I think I get better feedback that way.
Sure, that's fine. I'm open to that too. I was just trying to think of, making sure it's something everyone's available for. But I mean, hey, nobody's really gone anywhere, right? So nobody has anywhere better to be.
Right.
The one message that was sent loud and clear was that the staff does not want the village manager and the HR person to be the same, like it has been. And it was basically with Steve also when he was here, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's everybody's schedule looking like? I mean, right now, next week.
Got village board on Tuesday.
Well, we have a village board meeting on Tuesday, August 4th.
That's Public Works and Plan Board.
Yeah.
Just, which is fine, but we have Public Works and Plan Board. One's at 5:30, one's at 6:30.
This Tuesday,
What about next week?
next week is village board.
What about Wednesday? Day after?
Yeah.
Well, there might be court on Wednesday, in this room anyways.
Well, we can go into, well, we got the staff here.
Yeah, we'd have
we
a
got-
lot of people if we go into A. Do we have court next?
Would it work,
Wednesday?
and I don't know everyone's availability,
Yes,
but
we have
would it
court
work
next
better to do
Wednesday.
this meeting during the day? Department heads are on site.
I was kind of
I'm certainly
thinking,
flexible to make that work.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Everybody got availability during the day?
I do.
So I stand corrected, the 29th, there is not court. There's court on the 5th. There is no court next Wednesday.
Day might be better with the staff if everybody's available. That would,
Yeah.
What works? I mean, you want to try Wednesday, the 29th? Try to have it as early in the day, like at 4 o'clock or something, so that staff can be there for the first hour, and then we can roll right into the other one right after that?
I'm flexible. Anything works for me pretty much.
Yeah, that should work for me too.
It does work?
It should, yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see a bunch more position descriptions from other places around the state,
Yeah.
like Sun Prairie and Wanakee and Eau Claire and Wauwatosa, places, the more the better, I think, on that
Well, we can try-
that level person.
Can you get a hold of the league, Mary, or?
Yeah, I'll call the league.
I know there's a few in the state that are hiring right now. The city of Monroe is hiring. The city of Plymouth is still hiring. There's quite a few that are hiring a similar role. Not all those are the same size, but just to get a sense of responsibilities.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's try to set it for 4 o'clock on next Wednesday then, and see if we can have directors there, as many as possible. And then we'll roll into, a workshop after that, or a working meeting, if you will.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
part of the goal is to determine what the village manager should be doing. If that person can potentially absorb other jobs that other people are doing, as well as,
Well, if we get rid of, if we go to the route of a village manager, can they maybe take the clerk position? Can we
okay,
hire, if we hire an
that's part
HR
of the
director?
discussion.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
good,
I'm just
okay.
throwing idea out there, or can somebody else of the department heads take over another aspect? I'm not sure.
yeah.
I think we definitely want to get the village attorney perspective on that too, just to see if there are any roles that state statute would prohibit a manager from holding. I'm not really clear on that, but I don't know, for example, if like the treasurer role is able to be held by the manager, if there's any provisions that would prohibit that.
Well, he's sitting right here, so he's listening to the whole conversation, so.
Well, yeah, but I don't expect him to, cite state statute off the top of his head.
I do.
The time for research is always great.
Yeah, okay. We will ask him. Okay, so we'll set a meeting for next Wednesday, 4 o'clock. And we'll go from there. And if you find any information that you have, if Allison or anybody else and Mary can get some stuff, Allison Williams, if you can get an HR, some director position, job descriptions, samples, that'd be fantastic as well. And it'll get that for us, and then we can go through it all.
Good.
Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Now I lost my agenda here. Okay, we will move, items for next agenda. Well, I think we set our next agenda already for next week right now, so unless anybody, and I'm not going to take any more agenda items for next week anyways, but if you have something for the following meeting, please contact staff and we'll get them on there, so. Thank you very much for discussion tonight, everybody, on that. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Bye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much again.